Good morning, everybody. We're going to start the property committee. It's October 22nd and 8:01 a.m. So welcome, everybody. Before I start, I'd like to introduce and welcome our student rep for the property committee. That would be Miss Emma McGrath. So hello and welcome. As I say to all of our student reps, please don't be shy. If you have any questions, pop right in there and ask your questions, okay?
Welcome, Emma.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen very quickly. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll start off by just going through the agenda. We have 4 agenda items today. The first is a discussion about automated stop arm enforcement, just giving an overview on that program. We then have AI camera and panic button software discussion. And then it'll be handed over to Mr. Grace, who will provide us with an update on the middle school project. And then it'll be handed over to Mr. Watley to provide us with some operational updates that's happening through the district. So at this time, I'm actually going to hand this over to Mr. Bray to give us a brief overview of the automated stop arm enforcement program. And we can go from there.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Is sound okay? Can you hear me? Okay, kind of in a different location, just wanted to make sure. So a review of what we are looking at as far as automated stop arm enforcement is the fact that the law a few years ago changed in Pennsylvania to allow some additional options for cameras on the outside of school buses using some artificial intelligence technology with a lot of the vendors that look to do this to recognize vehicles that are passing school buses that have their red warning lights activated and be able to identify the vehicle and send that information to law enforcement, who can then issue a civil citation. Previously, you could the local law enforcement agency could issue criminal citations or traffic tickets. This would be similar to a red light violation on a traffic light that traffic can go through. So this would be a school bus that gets equipped with these automated stop arm enforcement systems, just updates an evidence package to local law enforcement. They have an opportunity to review it, and if they agree that somebody has violated the school bus stopping law, they will go ahead and issue a citation, a civil citation to the owner of the vehicle that committed the violation. We at Springfield Township, thus far, while we do have some stop arm cameras in our fleet, they are district owned and they are used as evidence to pass on to local law enforcement at the request of the driver when they let us know that somebody has passed the stopped school bus. We are talking to some vendors at this point, looking at the feasibility and looking at what it would look like in Springfield Township if we chose to pursue automated stop arm enforcement. So different vendors have different business models. We, as I said, are talking to a few of them. I can get into a little bit of that if you would like. But at this point, we're just kind of looking at what our options are. There are school districts out there that see this and are actively using it as a little bit of a revenue driver. We don't necessarily believe that it would be a large revenue driver in Springfield Township. We, being a little bit smaller township and not as many of our roads are major thoroughfares, I think that we see a little bit less of the illegal passing than some of our neighboring school districts. But it is something we're looking at. It's something we want to use to increase the safety around the school bus and hopefully start to change some driver behaviors where we have problems. And something we're exploring to see if we can at least get partially started in 26, 27.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board regarding the overview of this program?
None from me.
I just
Yeah.
have a quick question.
Sure.
You said something about a revenue driver. Does that mean that, like, if a person gets a ticket, a portion of that money goes to Springfield? Because I'm guessing we would pay for the technology.
So yes and no. It depends, and that again is why we're speaking with multiple vendors on this one. There are vendors out there that it is 100% cost-free to the school district, and then there is a revenue sharing driver. Basically, the law in Pennsylvania says that the fine for this civil penalty to the vehicle owner would be a total of 300 drivers. That same law says that $25 goes to the local law enforcement agency that issued the citation, $25 goes to a state school bus safety trust fund, and the rest of it is up to the district and or owner of the camera to determine kind of what that model looks like. So, vendors who give you the technology at no charge obviously are going to, in order to make sure they're protecting their interest, probably take a little bit larger portion of what that revenue is. Where if it's technology that we pay for and equip the vehicle with, there might be a little bit more room to move that the district realizes a larger portion of that. But the way the law is written is that the owner of the school bus does take away $250, and then it's just up to those business agreements to see what that really looks like, whether it be 250 versus a smaller number because of a revenue sharing model.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, I'm gonna let Nate go because Nate, I believe, is in Harrisburg, about to attend a conference. So we're gonna let him start his day in Harrisburg. So thank you, Nate.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye, Nate. Okay, our next agenda item, we're going to talk about the panic button alerts and the AI software on cameras. And I'm actually going to hand this over to Dr. Yannicone to lead with the discussion. And also Mr. Chinta and Mr. Lutz is also on the call to add any comments that they might have regarding this research and regarding these discussions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Green. Board members, you may recall that at the September board meeting, we had public comment asking us to look into these two items. The community member actually identified a specific vendor, but these are actually resources that have many vendors that are possible. And so what Mr. Chinta has done over the last month is engage in some research both locally and nationally on the use of panic button alerts as well as AI software on district cameras. And we'll talk about that just a little bit. So we're going to start with the panic button alerts. Panic buttons can be wearable, and the vendor that was mentioned at the board meeting by our community member last month is a wearable panic button that allows staff to discreetly send alerts during emergencies. And they have, as part of their IED badge, a push button where they can either push it 3 times to let the district security and administration know that they need help. Perhaps they're having a physical emergency or a personal emergency, or they could be having an emergency in the classroom. Or they can push it 8 times until a strobe is initiated, which then sends a message directly to a monitoring agency that we would be contracting with, that then in turn sends a message to emergency responders. And this can be used in situations such as a lockdown in the event of an active shooter. So the cost structure for this, Mr. Chinta researched, is a one-time installation fee per building of approximately $6,000, and then an $8,000 annual fee per building for these wearable panic button alerts. In considering this, currently we do want to let you know that the district has a panic button system. It's not wearable, but we use Alertus, and it is in the main office of each building. And we have a communication system in place with all of our district staff where they are to notify the office, who then hits the panic button, which directly notifies the 911 communication center. So currently, Mr. Chinta has been working with the technology department in how that emergency alert is being utilized. And he also attends local, regional, and national conferences on a regular basis to determine the rapid response of these panic buttons. So our recommendation at this time is to continue to use the existing system we have, the Alertus system, because that has a direct line to the emergency center. Whereas panic button alerts that are worn on persons, we have several concerns. And I'll allow Mr. Chinta to weigh in, but overall, our concern is that staff would be using a middle person in this monitoring agency rather than going directly to 911. In addition to that, the office and our security team in the district are not notified at the time that the person uses the wearable panic button. And so the concern is that we would not have the kind of awareness within the building where the emergency is occurring that we would if we continue to use the system we currently have. And Mr. Chinta, I'd appreciate you in your role sort of weighing in on this consideration as well.
Sure, thank you. Yes, so one of my biggest concerns was, in fact, that middle person. Currently with the Alertus system, that is connected directly to the CAD system at the Montgomery County Department of Public Safety. So there is no middleman. That once that alert is sent to them, it is automatically dispatching police. Whereas with the wearable panic buttons, in the conversations with Department of Public Safety, there is no integration with their systems. Therefore, it's sort of like your alarm system at home, where the alarm's triggered, it is sent to the monitoring station, who then starts calling people and then sends it to 911 for an emergency dispatch. So there is a lot of time gap in that, whereas the system we currently have is instant.
A question on that. So I understand what you're saying, that with our current system, it's instant, but it's instant from the office to the monitoring station. What about from the teacher's location within the school to the office? Like, I mean, I get it, there's going to be a delay either way, but would it at least improve or reduce the amount of time that it takes for that teacher who might be incapable of contacting the office otherwise to go through this third party? You know, like, I mean, even that, while it's an extra step, it seems like it might be faster than what we currently have. Am I misunderstanding that?
So one of the things that we're working on with the tech department is we do have some capabilities with our phone system, which would allow us a one button push to notify multiple administrators. So that could be the type of panic situation. It would actually be a little bit quicker because it would notify multiple people who then could push that button, if that answers your question.
But that would be what, the phone system in the classroom?
Correct.
Okay, so it would still take, okay. I understand.
Can I ask a question? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, thanks, Karen.
Okay. All right. So do we not have an app that offers communication or that allows for communication amongst our staff? I thought I recalled that we were using some sort of a phone app, I guess. I'm not sure.
So our administrative team across the district uses a phone app to communicate in emergencies, to get a message out to all offices and school buildings at one time. So we do not have an app that we use across all district staff, but we have, Mr. Chinta, why don't you speak a little bit about Ruvna and how that works?
Sure. So we do have Ruvna, which is our management system for when we run drills or any type of emergency situation, where the administrator initiates the emergency, and that'll send an alert to all the teachers' cell phones, and that's how they can take attendance. So when we have a fire drill, the building administrator pushes fire drill, it sends an alert. When they evacuate the building, they take attendance, and we can message to all teachers through that app during an emergency situation.
Okay. Is there not, I mean, I think we've talked about this before too, that, you know, all the staff, pretty much staff and students all have their phones at any given time. Is there not an app like, say, Raptor, where a staff member can initiate an alert or can communicate the need for an alert? I don't know. There
are apps like that, and part of the research that I did with one of the systems that I looked into has it through the app. That would actually be changing the whole management system. So Raptor has a version, Crisis Go has a version where they would go into the app and initiate a panic from that way.
Have we considered those to use and what the cost and logistics with that would be?
So Mr. Chinta has been looking into Crisis Go,
Okay,
a particular vendor. We're not prepared to make a recommendation in that area.
that's
But
fine.
do you want to speak about that a little bit, Steve?
Sure. Yeah, so I did look into Crisis Go and spoke to a couple other districts. There aren't too many in Montgomery County that have switched to it yet. There are two, Upper Moreland and Upper Perk, that currently are using it. So it does give that option to have a panic button in the app, and it's basically has the same type of capabilities, actually more capabilities than what Ruvna has, but also has the ability to have the panic button.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Sure.
Of course. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I have a follow-up. So I just, I'm thinking about the ease of, so if I understand correctly, this wearable panic button would be something that you could just grab and press some number of times. And I'm understanding that the potential downside is that there's a delay because it's going to go out to a third party and then come back to the school or through 911, depending on the situation. Is that accurate?
Yes. And Mr. Chinta, you can expand on this, but part of the concern is if a staff member alerts an agency, that doesn't necessarily alert the people who work in the building. Whereas the system we currently have, they or in the case of we have many students, obviously, and you know stories of other districts where the student actually, and if the staff member is incapacitated, they will hit on the phone that emergency, or they will call the office, and then there is an alert that goes out to everybody in the building. And so the worry is that that delay with the monitoring agency are critical time, critical moments. Research basically shows that in the event of an active shooter, within the first 3 minutes, the damage is done. And so every second counts. So our goal is to eliminate that monitoring agency as a middle person and work within the system. And Mr. Chinta, please feel free to expand on that.
So in conversations with the Montgomery County Department of Public Safety, I did ask the question, how many districts have panic buttons? And there are 0 districts in Montgomery County that have wearable panic buttons. And it's the same concern. None of them have direct connection to the CAD system. The only 2 systems that have direct connection are Alertus, which we already have and most districts have, and Zero Eyes, which is a conversation we'll have later.
So are these companies that we're currently using, are they working on anything to add this type of functionality? I mean, like I hear what you're saying, but like in the normal situation, if the teacher can get to the phone, great, they go through the typical way and everybody's alerted at the same time. But what about those situations where there's no chance the teacher's going to be able to unlock their phone and go to a panic button in an app, or get to the classroom phone to run it that way? I'm thinking of the situation where the teacher's walking through the hallway and they see something about to happen. I don't know. I can't really predict. I'm just trying to think, like, they can't get to our methods for alerting the district now, so this would be a stopgap for those situations where we can't utilize what we already have in place. Is that, am I worried about something a situation that would never happen, or what's the downside to having this and that?
It's a worthwhile question. We will never say that there's no chance that a particular situation will happen. Obviously, we try to be as trained and prepared as we can for all potential situations. Mr. Chinta has attended conferences where they are reviewing the meta-analysis of the over 400 school shootings for which we have data since Columbine. And so we certainly could continue to look into the potential to have both systems, both Alertus and a second system. At this time, it just feels, I don't want to say unnecessary, but inefficient, given the monitoring agency as the middle person, most especially because our police department is directly across the street. And so their response time is outstanding.
And I can tell you from personal experience, even with our fire systems, I will hear something from a police officer before I hear anything from our alarm company. And that could be minutes.
Now, with that said, we are going to speak about Zero Eyes in a moment, which is a different kind of alert system, and we'll get to that in just a moment. But I see, Ms. Bell, you have your hand raised.
I just have a question. I'm not a teacher and I'm not in the classroom, and I just wondered, are there meetings that you have with the faculty to ask, hey, in an emergency, what would you want to use? Because I don't know, pressing something 8 times sounds really intense. Like, I get it, you don't want it to be once because somebody could accidentally bump it, but 8 times sounds like an awful lot in an emergency.
Mr. Chinta regularly works, and our principals regularly work with the staff on emergency procedures, as does Dr. Lutz from a support services standpoint. So their most recent training was the week prior to the opening of school. And then there are mandatory, under Act 55, there are mandatory trainings that all staff members must complete in a given school year. In Springfield, we have insisted that those trainings occur within the first 2 months of the school year on an annual basis, so that we don't have new staff who are waiting to get that information.
No, sorry, not to train them, but for their opinion on, in an emergency, what do they think is the best way? Like, I couldn't comment for a teacher, what is the best emergency system, because I'm not the one in that situation. But I want to know, are they being asked, if something happened, what would you want it to be like?
Yeah, a great question, Mr. Chinta. Why don't you speak about the ways in which you gather feedback from the staff?
Sure. So when I do the Act 55 in-person training, that is one of the questions I do ask is what feedback do you have for us? What can we do differently? Our teachers, I will say, are pretty pleased with how we are handling our emergency situations, how they're alerting staff. We have a quick response to things, any type of emergency that we have. So they've been very supportive on the methods that we are using now.
Thanks, Mr. Chinta. And then the other thing I'll say is that each school building has a monthly safety meeting. And that meeting feedback goes to both Mr. Chinta, Mr. Watley, and Ms. Green on a monthly basis. So any concerns around safety that are not brought up in the day-to-day functioning, because they are certainly visible and present on the campuses, comes through those monthly safety meetings. Okay. Ms. Green, why don't we move over to Zero Eyes? This was the second vendor, and I'm actually going to use the vendor's name because, we do have a recommendation here to potentially incorporate this. There is a financial cost to the district that is worth this group and the finance committee reviewing when we get into the budget cycle. Zero Eyes is an AI camera software, and in the last few years, the new vendor, which Zero Eyes is a local vendor, they have begun to promote their product regionally. And currently we are aware of 3 school districts in Montgomery County who are using Zero Eyes. Mr. Chinta and I have spoken to either their superintendent or assistant superintendent and their version of Mr. Chinta in order to get feedback on how Zero Eyes is working. When this AI camera software was initially released, there were significant concerns about false alarms. For example, a long umbrella, which is mistaken for a rifle, a mechanical drill mistaken for a handgun. So there were concerns early on about unnecessarily raising alarms on school campuses. Since that time, the feedback we've received is that the AI software has been refined and has now reached a level that is much safer for school campuses. So it's a visual firearm detection system. And again, this was the second vendor that was mentioned by the community member at the September board meeting. So it integrates with our existing security cameras. I mean, you know, we have hundreds of cameras on campus. It automatically detects firearms, and then there is a human operator at the monitoring system who verifies that it is in fact a weapon. And then they send an alert to on-site security, which would include Mr. Chinta, who would then dispatch to all of our campus administrators, 911, local police, et cetera, would get that message. So it analyzes video streams that are ongoing. You know, we have 24/7 video streams from our cameras, and the AI model now has been trained on data sets. And this is why I'm saying the system has been better refined so that it now knows better what a firearm is. Once the suspected firearm is detected, it typically takes 3 to 5 seconds after that human verification to send a confirmed alert to the first responders or the on-site staff. And so it's meant, that human operator is meant to reduce the false positives. There's no doubt that that means that there's a little delay, but you know, every second counts in trying to reduce risk if there is a firearm on campus. The cost structure, so we have 135 exterior cameras across all buildings. That's all campuses. And then that also includes our interior stairwells. We have additional cameras throughout the campuses. We have more than 135 campuses. Mr. Chinta, off the top of your head, how many total cameras do we have?
We have over 300 cameras.
Thank you. So that, you know, every hallway, every stairwell, and then multiple exterior cameras exist for all buildings and campuses. This also includes our transportation building, our administration building, our maintenance building. And so Mr. Chinta has done the research into ZeroWise, and the cost for a 3-year commitment for our exterior cameras and all stairwells, which is not every camera on our campus, it's about a third of them, is just over $44,000 per year. And then if we had a 5-year commitment, it would drop under $40,000 per year. So our recommendation is that we incorporate consideration of this as a budget item for next year's edition. We did not budget for this year. And well, we could certainly pull resources if the board felt that this was an urgent need and something we should incorporate immediately. Our recommendation, given the fact that, as you know, we are still delayed on multiple revenue sources this year, we're suggesting that we incorporate it into the 26-27 budget. So what questions do you have or feedback do you have for us? And Mr. Chinta, if I've missed anything, please let me know.
That was good.
Okay. Ms. Bell?
Sorry, I guess I'm more awake this morning than I thought with questions.
It's okay. These are important topics.
So in the event it recognizes a student has a gun, but it turns out the student does not have a gun, does that mean like we could be sued for not tormenting the student, but like for, say, like approaching the student, and like, does that open us up to liability if they think somebody has a gun and say the police and everybody, you know, comes at the student to get a weapon that doesn't exist?
It's a great question. Mr. Chinta, why don't you speak to what would happen when we were notified, like from that point forward?
Sure. So from the time we're notified, first of all, there's multiple people that would get notified. It's obviously after it's verified by the human component, we would get notified, the police would get notified. So when they arrive, I'm going to give an example. Let's just say there's one of the cameras in the parking lot has the detection system. So that camera will trigger the alert, send it to myself, the building principals, the police. With the police being so close, the hope is that they would get here before that person got into the building and address that situation. The systems that they have in place right now are very good. In conversations with other districts, yes, they have got hits on Nerf guns and things like that, but those don't get sent to police because that's verified with the human component of that. So as far as I can say confidently that if we were to have an alert that there was a real gun, that the police would be able to handle that situation without there being a lawsuit because it was legit.
Thank you. Emma, I see your hand raised.
Are there like the human dispatchers? Like what hours do they work? Because we have like a lot of after school activities. So what if someone like would bring a gun after school? Would they still be working?
Yes, it is 24/7.
It's a great question, Emma. In particular, at the high school, we have a very active evening campus. That's why we have security guards through the evening on the high school campus, and then they move district-wide depending on what's being hosted at other schools.
Yeah, so it is 24/7, and their monitoring station is actually local. It's in Conshohocken too.
And then that notification, in addition to it going to the police, Mr. Chinta would be one of the people who would be notified, and likely myself and Mr. Watley. So we're on call 24/7. Any other questions about Zero Eyes? Are you comfortable with us incorporating this into the next year's budget consideration?
Yeah, I am.
Can I just ask, and forgive me if I missed it, but at which commitment are we, or is it being recommended? Is it the 3-year or 5-year stage?
We haven't identified which specific one. I think that would be part of Ms. Green's budget planning for the next 3 to 5 years. As you know, we have a capital and facilities improvement plan, and this would be a component of that.
Okay.
Of course, do you have a preference on 3 or 5 years?
No, I was just curious. I probably 5 years makes sense, but I was really just wondering rather than offering an opinion necessarily.
Absolutely.
Thank
You know, I think when this software is relatively new to school districts, so the only consideration we might bring back to the team with 3 versus 5 years is another vendor may surpass Zero Eyes. So locking in longer, we could end up not being able to go with the best quality software that we were going for. Now, they are a local company, correct, Mr. Chinta? I believe they're out of Norristown.
Correct. They're out of their monitoring stations in Conshohocken.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll proceed in that vein, and I'm going to turn things back over to Ms. Green.
Thank you. I'm gonna jump over the next presentation because I'm gonna actually end this presentation, even though it's linked into this, because it's gonna be a little bit cleaner for everybody to see through the PowerPoint presentation. So instead of ending this and then bringing it back up, I'm gonna jump to Mr. Watley so I can end this presentation and then jump into Josh. So let's go into our Springfield Township operations update, and I will hand this over to Mr. Watley.
Sure, good morning. From a maintenance and facilities point, we've changed all the filters, the HVAC filters. We did that prior to school starting, and we're scheduled to do that again in about 2 weeks. Try to change them every 90 days. We have also repainted and highlighted the stop signs and directional arrows on the roadways of the high school. We completed painting in the lower house section of the high school, and the teachers and staffs and kids seem to be overjoyed about that. Our cleaning service, CSG, I meet with them on a weekly basis. We're also doing walks, checked in with the principals, which we continue to do. And so far, everyone's happy with how the schools are looking. Classrooms are looking clean, floors are looking clean, kitchens are looking clean. So we will continue to be vigilant in that aspect. And I also have plans to meet with principals to talk about everything in working order in the schools. We know that it's getting colder, so it's important that our HVACs and heating works so that everyone is comfortable. Other than that, it's just work as usual, maintaining the fields, keeping them properly groomed and lined. And that's about it from this corner. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Watley? And I do have to jump in and say, he very modest with the work that's being done by the facilities department on the ground side. The buildings look great, lots of compliments on the work that's being put in by our cleaning company, which is attributed to Mr. Watley greatly. And the lower house painting is just a phase and a part of our 5-year operation plan. So we implemented our year one of that operation plan, which was presented to the property committee at the end of last year. And our goal is to get the high school classrooms completely painted. As you know, last year we were able to do all the common areas and common hallways. And so now we're digging into the classrooms. So Mr. Watley has walked through the buildings with each of the principals. He's analyzed and determined that the high school was in the greatest need and started at the lower house because the lower house was in the greatest need at the high school. I've met with some of those teachers because we are now talking about furniture phasing, because that is the follow-up with the painting. And the teachers are just thrilled at the difference that a fresh coat of paint makes in the classroom. So, kudos and good job to you and your team.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you just bear with me for a second, I'm going to end this presentation and then we'll get Josh queued up and I will hand it over to Josh for the middle school update.
Sure. And while Miss Green is doing that, I just wanted to do a quick introduction to myself. I'm Josh Grice with CHA, formerly Dewey Engineering. I've been with the Dewey organization for about 23 years. I'm really excited to have you guys as a client. We're meeting weekly with Dr. Yannicone and the administration just to make sure that things are being communicated properly and timely. And I'm really excited to be a part of the team. And also, just to echo some of the words about the modesty with Mr. Watley and his department, have been fantastic with getting spaces ready for turnover once contractors have been cleaning up. Charles and his crew have been coming in to make sure that everything is just so for move-in. So between the high school roof project, the middle school move-in, it was a very busy summer, and I just want to thank the administration team across the board for your leadership and your guidance with that.
Thanks, Josh. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Just give me a second here. Can everybody see that? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, Josh, I'm going to hand this over to you. Just let me know when you'd like me to
Sure.
advance the slide.
Yep, you can hit the nice aerial photo that we have. So actually, thank you to Springfield Township School District for your drone photo updates. This is one that looks to be over the kind of late summer timeframe. Just wanted to highlight some of the site activities that had happened as part of that initial phase, getting ready for completion for September of this year. You'll notice the staging area, which is near the top right off of Paper Mill Road. That's where a lot of activity is happening with construction of the auditorium. Also, our geothermal well field is under construction up there. And you'll notice that the parking lots and access roads have been reconfigured. Those are, I think, providing a pretty organized drop-off route for students in the morning. That's been something that we've been coordinating pretty closely with Amy and her staff, and I think it's been working out pretty well. You'll notice the new lot located at the left side of the screen. I think everybody's been aware of the frustrations that we've had with the local utility company, with PECO. There have been some instances with gas utilities that needed to be relocated. Currently, there is still a portion of site conduit that needs to be repaired in proximity to one of the gas lines, and we are looking to get that scheduled over the weekend. Obviously, with sunset coming sooner and sooner, we want to make sure that that parking lot is illuminated properly. So we're working with PECO as well as the electrical contractor to make sure that we can safely and properly identify that line and get those repairs completed. And we are working towards that in a very short time frame. Okay. You can go on to the next. So just to give you a brief recap, this is a snapshot of some of our phasing plans. So over the span of 3 separate phases, which are then broken down into subphases, how we're kind of moving through the building with both the additions and the renovations. Obviously, phase one included the start of the auditorium structure. With that large structure under construction, that's over a year process just to get that complete and ready for turnover. So we'll see some photos later on with that process, but that large auditorium structure is underway at this point. Phase 1B was the low incidence classroom areas. Those were also turned over in September. And currently we are working in phase 1C, which is the middle part of the screen. That's our new main entrance, secured vestibule, administrative suite, and also restrooms for the cafeteria and common space. So again, getting that phase 1B complete and set up. Mr. Watley and his crew were integral, and Ms. Green, with getting furniture delivered in a timely manner. So I think that turnover process was very successful. With the completion of phase 1C, which is scheduled for over the Christmas break, we will be immediately moving out of the existing administration suite and into that area. So that future work with the clinical suite, which will start right after the Christmas break, is going to slide right in after the district can move out of the existing space. So auditorium slated to be complete at the end of summer 2026. And again, the other spaces either have been turned over or turn over for phase 1C over the Christmas break. You can advance. So just a couple photos of some of the recreated spaces from phase one. This is the new fitness area. I think everybody is very happy with how that area turned out. Really nice space, folding partitions separating the health side from the fitness side. High ceilings. I think it's a pretty bright and impressive space back behind the existing gymnasium. Some of the other photos from phase 1B include the main hallway outside of the existing administration suite. So that's adjacent to the library with the provision of a new ADA ramp to get from one level to the next. So back at the end of that image, up the steps would be the low incidence classrooms, just to kind of give you a frame of reference where you are in the building. The image on the right is the low incidence apartment. So you'll see the appliances and some of the nice workstations that have been provided as part of that transformation. It's a pretty cool space. And in fact, I had a pretty good cup of coffee up there that they made a couple weeks ago. So pretty exciting space up there in phase 1B. So again, with site activities, I mentioned about the traffic circulation, which I think has been working out very well. We are constantly being vigilant with site fencing and making sure that things are secure. So you'll see that fencing has been provided around the storage areas out front of the cafeteria, as well as heading back to the staging area, the contractor parking and office area. I mentioned the geothermal well drilling. So again, that is just above the pitched roof there over the gymnasium. And Ms. Green, if you can just go on to the next image, just to show you a little bit about that operation. So we have about 70 wells that are being constructed for the geothermal heating system. So the building currently has a geothermal system. With the additions, we're expanding that, and we're actually tying into the existing piping within the mechanical room. So there's a well field of about 70 wells that is being constructed to help support those expanded HVAC systems. I will take a moment and say that we have encountered some pretty challenging geotechnical conditions out there. We're trying to evaluate the best course of drilling. There are a couple different methods that can be used, as well as steel casing that can be placed to help support the integrity of the borehole. So not uncommon for this region to have some geotechnical challenges. We are still working through that. There will be some cost impacts related to the ultimate solution and depth and number of wells, but we just wanted to make sure that the board is aware of that situation. Okay. All right, next. Okay, so phase 1C, this is the vestibule addition. Just wanted to show you an image of the current status with the structural steel being provided for that exterior to interior transition. We can show you an image in just a few of what the rendering will look like at the final version of that. So Ms. Green, if you want to move along. So this is looking from the exterior, obviously. It's amazing how realistic these architect renderings are. So you can expect something very similar to what you see in the rendering. Really nice high natural light coming in, higher popped up roof elevation to really highlight that as the new main entrance of the building. So it's going to be a very exciting space to walk into for visitors. Next. So this would be the vestibule looking from the inside. Again, nice high spaces and what would be the access then into the main administration suite. So this would be from the inside, again, as part of this main entrance vestibule. There's also the administration area that is attached to it, but this would be sort of the main welcoming point for staff, for visitors as they enter that secured vestibule area. Next. And finally, as part of phase 1C, which backs up to the existing cafeteria, these are the new restroom facilities. So these are group bathrooms. They're actually individual stalls for students that are single-use individual toilet facilities. So this is something that is really gaining in popularity that we've been seeing with school construction. So common wash area with individual stalls for the students. So looking at the auditorium, again, thank you for the drone shots. So this was a very recent one, just of as recently as last week, and you'll see the roofing activities underway. So at this point in the season, now that the temperatures are changing, we're getting into colder temperatures. It's really important that we make sure that the building envelope, which is the exterior, is watertight and is temperature controlled so that we can heat the interior space and proceed throughout the winter with the installations. So really good news with the roof going on and getting the exterior walls completely buttoned up with masonry so that we can get it encapsulated and continue work within the inside of that structure as we move into the winter so that we're in good shape heading into the spring and summer for getting that turned over by the end of 2026 summer. A couple other photos from the ground elevation, just to kind of show you some of the exterior masonry work and the height of that space from looking at the inside. So it's going to be a very impressive middle school performance space, very exciting. There's a lot of coordination that happens between the trades. If you can imagine the complexity with ductwork and stage rigging and lighting. There are acoustical clouds, which Ms. Green, if you can head to the next slide, which again is a rendering. So all of those things you see at the ceiling are suspended from the structure, and you can imagine what's involved with getting ductwork and lighting and everything else coordinated and hung between those spaces. So a lot of effort happening between the prime contractors and CHA and the architect to make sure that the installations are well organized, well laid out, and that really helps with serviceability in the future for Mr. Watley and his crew to make sure that they can access lights or they can access dampers when needed in the future for maintenance. So just wanted to share with you what that space, will ultimately feel like when it's complete. That's it. Hopefully I didn't take up too much of your time. I wanted to be thorough, but not too wordy. So if you guys do have any questions, I'm happy to take them at this point.
I just have one question, and Mr. Grice, thank you for the presentation. I wanted to go back to something that you mentioned about the geothermal drilling, and you said that there were some challenges with the drilling, and I imagine with the soil, and you mentioned that there may be some cost increases and things like that. And I'm not challenging that. I'm just, can you give us a little bit more detail about that, or explain exactly what that is?
Sure. So the wells, usually with geothermal, the deeper you go, the better. So the plan was to have 400-foot deep wells in a well field of about 45 or so wells. What we've been finding with the drilling operation is that there are situations where it's been very difficult without the addition of casing to support a deep well drilling operation without the well either collapsing or without losing the grout product into voids, loose material surrounding the well. And the challenges have been we're either hitting pockets of rock or pockets of very soft material that is resulting in the loss of the grout product. Typically, once you hit a certain depth, maybe it could be as shallow as 50 feet, it could be at 100 feet. Typically in this region, you can expect to find bedrock. So once you hit that point, you're in solid bedrock, which actually is good from a conductivity standpoint and from a drilling operation standpoint. You kind of know what to expect. In this case, we are not encountering solid bedrock at the site. So again, the difficulty with that is anticipating what is required for steel casing to help support the integrity of the hole and hitting pockets of solid material, and then another 50 feet down, it's loose again. And so we're constantly trying to determine if we can have separate sections of casing. Do we have solid casing? Because that is additional cost. How do we best manage the financial, how can we be financially responsible with where we need casing or what the best approach is? So we're trying to balance that from a schedule standpoint, from a cost standpoint, and obviously from a performance standpoint of the end solution of the well. So basically, we have to make sure that the water that's being circulated throughout the system is rejecting heat properly so that the system operates properly. So it's a lot of being flexible on a well-to-well basis with the individual characteristics that we're finding at that well might be different from one to another that's only 30 feet away. So it's been very challenging trying to find a solution that makes sense, not just for one well, but for many, because the characteristics are different across the field.
Just to piggyback on what Mr. Grace said from a financial aspect, if you remember when we brought the bid awards and the budget and talked about this whole project, we brought it to the property committee and bids were awarded. There were allowances built in at all levels throughout this project because there's pieces that is a renovation. You never know what's going to happen when you start digging. You never know when you start to demo what you're going to find. So there was a site a site renovation allowance that was built into the overall cost of the project. So this is something that we can 100% absorb within the budget of what was originally brought forward to the property committee.
Yeah, no, thank you. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Can I just tack on to that? So, and I understand exactly what you're saying, but I'm assuming even with the test wells that were drilled preliminarily, I guess there's still, you can't predict, because you could have something. I've dug in my backyard and just going down 2 feet, you can encounter, loose, and then, next place is schist. Is this common for this type of drilling where the test wells wouldn't have revealed this?
I'd say it's common for the region. So Eastern Pennsylvania, Southeastern Pennsylvania, it's not uncommon that we've encountered these types of situations. Again, it's the predictability is the tough point, because as I mentioned, you can have completely different characteristics across the field. The test well that was done, which tested both for geotechnical and conductivity analysis, did not indicate that we'd have the challenge to the extent that we do, unfortunately. So There was a certain method of drilling that had been recommended based on the conditions that they encountered during testing, which we're finding are unfortunately not consistent throughout the remainder of the field at this point.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks.
Are there any other questions regarding the presentation?
I actually do have a couple more questions if we could pivot.
Okay.
So you had mentioned fencing at one point in your presentation. I just want to go back. I've heard and I understand there's been issues with the fencing being either monitored or secured while the students are around. What's the story there?
So we are making sure that into the staging area, there's one main gate that would handle construction traffic, truck traffic, those types of things. We are making sure that those gates are remaining closed throughout the day. There have been some instances, especially approaching the dismissal time where the site gets very busy with pedestrians and students, that the gates have been opened. Some of that had been for the convenience of trucks moving in and out, but at this point, we have been even more vigilant with making sure that those gates are remaining closed at all times unless there is an active need for a delivery truck or something to get in and out. So that is definitely a focal point that we have been working on to make sure that both contractors, CHA, the district is aware, especially at those busy times of arrival and dismissal, that site fencing is completely closed down and unable to have anybody move in and out at that point.
And is there somebody on site from CHA overseeing, is it just like telling everybody to make sure they do this, or is there somebody keeping an eye on it to make sure it's not creating safety?
So we do have a full-time site representative. He is actively making sure that these gates are staying closed, working with the contractors, being present at the time to make sure that we are following those perimeter closures. So yes, it's been actively monitored at this point.
Okay.
Mr. Grace, if I could just add to that, we are aware that we had a concern expressed from a member of the community with regard to gate security. And in addition to what CHA is doing in their oversight role, Miri Sinamari, who is the on-site supervisor, has also been actively involved in working with our subcontractors to explain, the significance of that gate security to all of our subcontractors, whether they're there for several days or they're here for the duration of the project. In addition to that, Mr. Watley is on site daily, multiple times a day, to do visual inspections. And Mr. Chenta, I have asked to guarantee gate security at arrival and dismissal times with regard to that, high traffic time. And he has also been including gate checks at the very end of his day, which sometimes is much later in the day. In addition to that, Mr. Samara shared with us last week, I believe, Mr. Grace, that something that I wasn't, I think, fully aware of, which is the OSHA requirements with regard to that gate security, and the fact that there must be emergency exits available at all times for the workers from their own safety perspective. And so they're looking at a door with a push bar that comes only from the inside out that would be added to the gate structure in order to make sure that they are meeting OSHA requirements in addition to providing the gate security that we have requested they raise their standard for, following some concern from a member of the community and our own observations, quite frankly, including my own.
So can I ask another question on a different topic, or if we're good to move on from the gates? I hate to beat this one up, but back to this gas line. I'm still racking my brain. I understand, and please correct me if my understanding is wrong, but my understanding is that this is the new gas line that was installed during this project. And then that same gas line that was newly installed was hit. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. So PECO had relocated a gas line in the July timeframe, an unknown gas line, the location, quite frankly, and then to make a site lighting repair to underground conduit, the electrical contractor had then put in another Pennsylvania one call to mark out utilities, and PECO had identified the previous location of the line instead of the new location. So the contractor, unfortunately, as they were excavating for the conduit, did encounter the relocated portion of the PECO line. So we have been following up with PECO, and there's a separate company who comes out to do the underground markings to make sure that we have a site meeting so that their records are properly reflected, that we see that the district is aware that they should be getting an as-built plan of those utilities for any future work. So I've been trying to set up a meeting with Jeffrey Smith of PECO and ULS, who's the locator company, to come out and make sure that those records are completely updated and the district has an updated record of it.
Okay, that all sounds reasonable. I guess my concern here is, regardless of what PECO noted, CHA was on site throughout the operation. Like, didn't somebody notice that there was going to be, or that it was missed? Like, I'm just thinking, if I was doing work in my house and I had a general contractor install, say, heating under the floor, radiant heating under the floor, and then I subsequently had a flooring contract, not I, the general contractor had somebody else come in to do flooring on top of that, I would expect that general contractor to make sure that the two knew what the other had done. I mean, it's the same if an electrician had put something in a wall and then somebody comes in and drills a hole in that wall. Like, I feel like, shouldn't the general contractor have known that this was done? And then, even though it's a couple months later, but rather than just relying on PA1 call, the GC overseeing this whole operation would have known, like, hey, we just buried this not too long ago. Like, that's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah, and so PECO was the entity that made the relocation. It was not the contractor. So, and the location of the lines were fairly close together in that the contractor could have reasonably assumed that the line, as it was marked out by the utility company who relocated the line to begin with, had properly located it. It was about, I want to say, 12 feet from the original location. And given the amount of disturbance and final site configuration and, kind of landmarks changing a little bit, it was very difficult to determine the exact location of relocation from July to when it was ultimately encountered again. So we understand the concern, the point. We will make sure again that our records are up to date and we can provide any future assistance with the location of these utilities. Unfortunately, again, it was just a matter of with how much attention this line got to begin with and making sure PECO was making proper repairs for them to then mislabel it later was unfortunate, but we will certainly make sure that we have updated records and provide better communication in the future.
Thank you.
Mr. DeFranco, I also think it's worthwhile to note, Mr. Grice mentioned early in his presentation that we have asked CHA to work with the contractors to ensure that any further work, which obviously there's still work to be done because there's still fencing in that area, because we've asked them not to return to complete that work until we're on a weekend when there are not student activities on the campus or staff on the campus, to ensure that that work gets done safely and completely outside of school hours. And away from community activities as well, because as you know, there's a lot of evening and weekend activities in all of our campuses. At the same time, we've asked them to do everything they can to accelerate the process to complete the work on the electrical conduit, because we're currently using temporary lighting that Mr. Watley has arranged on that parking lot because it's dark in the morning when staff are arriving to work, and then it's getting darker in the evening as community and district activities are concluding. So our hope is that this work will be concluded very shortly. And again, on a weekend, not during a school day.
Thanks for adding that.
Any other questions? No? There are two attendees. Are there any public questions at this time? I do see a hand raised. I am not familiar with how we allow public. So Tim, if you can help me with this.
I'm trying to get them unblocked now to unmuted now.
Okay, thank you. Hi there. If you could please state your name and the part of the township in which you reside for the minutes, and then you can make your comments or state your question.
Just 1 minute, Mrs. Marsh. Tim, it doesn't look like she's unmuted.
I have it unblocked that she can
There you go.
Good morning. My name is Marielle Marsh. I reside in Orland, Pennsylvania on Lucon Road. I just wanted to mention that I am the community member who continues to have concerns about the construction site safety, which remains inadequate. The fencing and perimeter gate continues to be open sporadically. There are also a number of issues that remain unsafe on the construction site that are observable to passersby. I will respond more thoroughly in an email raising again my concerns about the lack of safety at this construction site where my son attends school every day. I charge each of you to take the same care for our children that you should related to the safety or lack thereof at this construction site. There's debris everywhere. The perimeter fences remain open. Keys remain in machinery. The open area where the gas line incident happened has ragged fencing that is down. There's a big piece of construction equipment there. There are massive trenches. It is inherently unsafe, and I implore you to do something about it. I will again follow up in an email, and I will follow up with a records request. This is a long project, and our students deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Marsh. Are there any other public comments? Are there any other comments from the board before we adjourn?
I guess I just want to go back based on the comment from Ms. Marsh. I know we're discussing the fencing and I heard that has improved. Is this a recent improvement, like within the last week, or are any of these concerns still happening?
Mr. DeFranco, are you asking Mr. Grice or?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are
Yes.
you asking
Yes, I
Mrs.
guess-
Marsh? I'm not sure.
No, I guess I'm asking Mr. Grice.
Okay.
Thank you sorry about that. That's sort of question to everybody, but that was not my intent.
The site perimeter fencing, there is certainly heightened vigilance, I'll say, outside of the normal arrival and dismissal hours, which really was the most key point, I think, of making sure that that area was secure. So throughout the entire day, as I mentioned, regardless of time of day, other than a delivery happening at the time, those gates will be completely closed. So, that is something that is more of a recent shift outside of the arrival dismissal times. But, I will say that from a safety perspective, going all the way back in design with development of phasing drawings and temporary partitions and how we can segregate the building from construction and staff student use, that's nothing that has been, only recently implemented. That's been in the works or actively happening since the project started.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further comments, I'd like to adjourn the meeting and wish everybody a good day.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.